Hello and welcome to DOZ Monologues, hosted by Eturuvie Erebor. DOZ Monologues, also known as DOZ Chronicles Audio Stories, aims to educate, inspire, and drive societal change. All stories are written and narrated by Eturuvie Erebor, and all rights are reserved, including the right of reproduction in whole or in part in any form. This is episode 2, titled Egodi's Story, Part 2. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Egodi's Story, Part 2. My name is Egodi Odogwu. I was born 23 years ago. I never knew my mother, as she died while giving birth to me. I was looked after by my elder sister, Ada, and my father. I was the apple of his eyes, and he doted on me. After Ada got married, I moved in with her and her husband because my father couldn't take care of me alone. Ada was everything an older sister should be. She wanted the best for me. I lacked nothing while in her house. In my final year of secondary school, I met Lucas, a much older man whose entry into my life will change it completely forever. When I reflect on the past, I feel a deep sense of regret. I wish I could turn back time and stop that meeting from ever taking place. If only I had known then what I understand now, I would have never given him the opportunity to speak. Unfortunately, I did, and as a result, my life has only become more difficult. Before meeting Lucas, I was a young girl full of dreams. I wanted to go to university to study accounting. I dreamt of working in a bank, like my older sister, and getting married to a tall, dark, and handsome man who worked in a big organization and earned a good salary. I envisioned having 3 children with my perfect partner and sending them to the best schools and taking them around the world on holidays. A good life was within reach, but unfortunately, meeting Lucas changed everything. It was a weekday, though I can't remember which day, but I had gone to school and was on my way back under the scorching sun when I met him. The first thing I noticed was that he was much older than me and dressed in a police uniform. In hindsight, I can't pinpoint what attracted me to him, as he wasn't the type of man I usually liked. At school, I was typically drawn to boys who were tall, dark, and handsome, and who looked very neat in their uniforms. Lucas did not fit this image. He was sitting in a run-down, shabby-looking restaurant, and he appeared just as unkempt as his surroundings. His shirt was unbuttoned, revealing a vest that was rapidly changing from white to a brownish hue. I won't go into much detail, but it's safe to say he generally looked disheveled. He was also speaking very loudly to the woman who owned the restaurant. "Good afternoon, sir," I greeted as I walked past him. "Good afternoon," he responded and paused. "Please wait a minute, I would like to have a word with you." I halted abruptly and turned slowly to face him, a slight frown forming on my brow. "Are you referring to me?" I asked, just to be sure I wasn't mistaken, even as I was curious about what he wanted to discuss with me. "Yes, I am talking to you," he answered, not bothering to stand up and approach me. "Please, come and have a seat." He gestured toward the empty chair at the table where he was sitting. I didn't want to be rude, as he appeared much older than me, so I obliged him, feeling a bit anxious to hear what he had to say. I hoped he would not waste my time, as I was tired and wanted to go home to rest. "Yes, how can I help you, sir?" I wanted to know once I was seated. He smiled, revealing his brown teeth, which were stained with plaque. I found this repulsive and looked away. "I have seen you on this road for over a week. You are a very beautiful girl. I like you and would like us to get to know each other better," he told me, still smiling. I wished he would hide those teeth. I felt certain that the breath from his mouth would be foul, so I moved my chair back a little to avoid the unpleasant smell. When I remained silent, he went on. "I am Sergeant Lucas Okpara with the Nigeria Police Force," he informed me, as though I hadn't already seen the uniform and the name tag. "What is your name, beautiful angel?" "My name is Egodi," I replied, looking everywhere else but at him. "Oh, what a beautiful name for a beautiful angel. And you are from Igbo, like me. That means that we are going to be very good friends." I wasn't sure what he meant by that, but I was ready to be on my way. "I have to be on my way now," I said, and began to rise. "Oh, but I haven't offered you anything. Please sit. Let me order you something to eat." I shook my head. "I am fine. I will eat when I get home. I really must be on my way now," I insisted. He also rose to his feet. "Okay, in that case, let me give you money for your lunch." He reached into his pocket, pulled out 5,000 naira and placed it in my hands. My eyes widened. No one had ever given me that kind of money before. My sister bought everything I required and paid all my bills directly to the school, so it was rare that I ever had money in my hands. If I did, it was usually for going to the market to buy things for the house. But at that time, I wasn't even going to the market anymore. The housemaid was responsible for that. So you can imagine how excited I was when Lucas gave me that money. In hindsight, it wasn't worth it. Collecting that money and agreeing to see him again seemed good at the time, but it cost me the future I had dreamt of and which I greatly desired. So Lucas and I began to meet each afternoon at the same restaurant on my way back from school. He was an engaging conversationalist, making it easy to talk to him. It didn't take long for us to become good friends. He was also very kind to me and encouraged me whenever I had problems at home with my sister or brother-in-law. And he gave me money frequently and bought nice things for me, the sort of things I would not have thought to ask my sister for. Our relationship progressed very quickly, and he soon began discussing marriage. I was naive. I believed he loved me, wanted to marry me, and that I would continue my schooling. About 3 months into our relationship, we stopped meeting at the restaurant and began to meet in a mini flat that belonged to a friend of his, Richard. I never met Richard, as Lucas explained that he was always at work when we called. However, Lucas had a set of keys to the apartment and would go there to wait for me to join him on my way back from school. Well, as we were always alone in the apartment, it didn't take long before we began to have sex. And because I was inexperienced and unprepared for this new development, I didn't know how to avoid unwanted pregnancies, and soon I became pregnant. It was at that moment that my perfect world fell apart. My sweet dreams turned into a nightmare. I had no idea that I was even pregnant at all. I had never been pregnant before, so I didn't know what to expect. When I thought of pregnancy, I envisioned women with protruding bellies. Mine wasn't protruding, dead, so the thought never entered my mind until one morning when my sister found me vomiting in the bathroom. "Egodi," she called out my name as she approached and stood next to me. "What is the matter with you?" I looked up at her and noticed a frown on her face. Her eyes reflected a mix of concern and apprehension as she examined me from head to toe, taking in every part of my body. I suddenly felt uncomfortable in her presence, and I wasn't sure why. "I feel a little unwell, sister." She nodded to show her understanding, her eyes scanning me again. "I see," she said after a while. "Go on and have your bath and get dressed. I will take you to the clinic, and after that, you can come home to rest if you're unable to go to school." I was a little surprised that she wanted to take me to the clinic to see the doctor. Usually she would assume malaria, give me drugs, and ask me to stay home and sleep. Anyway, I did as I was told. I had no idea that my sister had been closely observing me and already suspected I was pregnant. I also had no idea that when we arrived at the clinic, she asked the doctor to run a pregnancy test. Well, the test came back positive and all hell was let loose, but not instantly. How she managed to keep her cool until we arrived home, I will never know. As she drove me back to the house, explaining that I wouldn't be going to school, I nodded but said nothing. I was already feeling better, but I didn't want to argue. My thinking was that once she dropped me off and went to work, I would go to look for Lucas at his duty post, and we could retire to Richard's place to spend some quality time together. But what happened when we got home was completely different from what I had in mind. "Who is responsible for your pregnancy?" she demanded almost as soon as we set foot in the house. I was shocked. What could I say? I had no idea I was pregnant. It was news to me. As I tried to come to terms with the idea of my being pregnant and how that would affect my future and the dreams I had, my sister slapped me hard across the face. "I asked you a question. Answer me," she yelled. "Who is responsible for your pregnancy?" "Lucas," I whispered, my hand resting against the side of my face, which still stung. She stood with her arms placed on her hips before me, and I knew from her stance that she was waiting to hear more. So I told her everything. I told her how I had met Lucas and how the relationship had developed. I don't know what I thought would happen next, but what happened completely threw me off guard. She asked me to pack my things and leave her home. She said she could not take care of me and my baby and that we were now both Lucas's responsibility. I pleaded with her, but my pleadings fell on deaf ears. The more I pleaded, the angrier she became. She was soon in my bedroom, throwing my things out. I quickly gathered them together and left. My problems had only just begun. Armed with my suitcase, I went in search of Lucas. He immediately wanted to know what the matter was. I told him. I explained that my sister had thrown me out, insisting that the baby and I were now his responsibility. Lucas was livid. "How can you be pregnant?" he shouted at me. "A big girl like you? Don't you know how to protect yourself against pregnancy?" His anger was just as bad as my sister's. I began to cry. I had made a mistake, a terrible mistake. And while my sister was justified in her anger, what right did Lucas have to be angry? He had made me pregnant. As I wept silently, his anger subsided. We discussed the options available to us, or he talked and I just listened. He made it clear that an abortion was not an option he would consider as a policeman. No concrete decision was reached, but he took me to Richard's flat, and 3 days later, he rented a one-room apartment for me and furnished it. I dropped out of school, and Lucas and I began to live in that apartment like a couple. I quickly observed that he was frequently gone for long periods, and when I inquired, he told me he was on special duty. Foolishly, I believed him. A few months into our cohabitation, and with about a month to my expected date of delivery, I discovered the truth. He woke me one night and informed me that he was a married man. Yes, married with 3 children. I was shocked, but the bad news was not over. He explained that he could no longer afford to maintain 2 homes, as it was putting a strain on his finances. He informed me that I would be moving into his home to live with his wife and family. What could I say? What could I do? Where else could I go? Who else would help me? On the day I moved into his home, I wept. I looked at my surroundings, which evidenced poverty, and I wept. I remembered my sister's home and the comfort I had enjoyed there, and I wept. I remembered my dreams of having a good career, good pay, and living well, and I wept. I wept for my loss, the loss of comfort, the loss of my dreams, and all because of the deceit of Lucas. I wept until I had no more strength in me to weep. My life was only to become more miserable. Tina, Lucas's wife, hated me and made my life a living hell. I was heavily pregnant, but I did all the housework, and what was worse, I had no one to complain to. I bore my pain alone. Then my due date arrived, and I gave birth to a baby boy. I called him Samson. On my return home from the hospital, Lucas and Tina appeared overjoyed. Samson's birth seemed to have erased the initial anger and resentment Tina felt towards me. She even joined me in doing the house chores. Her 3 children also started to adjust to my presence in their home, and there was peace. However, it was only to last for a short time. About 5 months after Samson's birth, Tina and I had a big argument that quickly escalated from verbal to physical confrontation. Lucas was away at work. When he returned, Tina reported the incident. I expected him to ask for my side of the story, but I was mistaken. Instead, reacting to whatever Tina had told him, he beat me up. Anger consumed me. I was filled with hatred. I hated Lucas. I hated Tina, and I despised the life I was living, which felt increasingly distant from the dream I once had. The atmosphere in the home quickly changed. I felt secluded and treated as an outsider. Lucas ignored both me and our son Samson. He gave all his attention to Tina and their children. This should have made Tina happy, but it didn't. She looked for every opportunity to provoke me. Her actions got me so angry that I rebelled and stopped doing chores around the house. She quickly reported this development to Lucas, and once again I was severely beaten up. He not only beat me, but also threatened to throw me out. Lucas wanted to kick me out and leave me on the streets. I had lost everything because of Lucas, and now he wanted to evict me. And what will become of me? Where would I go? Who will take me in with my child? It was at this stage that I decided that I had had enough of Lucas and Tina and the wickedness they inflicted on me. I had been treated badly enough. It was time they paid. It was time they felt the pain they had caused me. I had wept enough. It was time for Lucas and Tina to weep. I began to think about what I could do to them to cause them sufficient pain and suffering. Finally, I had an idea and wasted no time executing it. On the day I would carry out my plan, I woke up early and took care of my household chores. I gave Samson a bath, and after feeding him, gave him some medication to induce sleep for longer than usual. Then I left the house under the guise of going to braid my hair. Before I left home, Tina had taken her two older children to school and had gone with the toddler to her shop in the market. At 10 a.m., I went to the children's school and informed their teachers that I had been sent by their mother to bring them home. Since the children recognized me, the teachers were quick to release them into my care. I hurriedly led them out of the school premises and onto a bush path. This surprised the kids, and they immediately wanted to know where I was taking them. I explained that we were taking a short cut to their mother's shop in the market. They believed me and were quiet. Once we had traveled deep into the bush path and were out of sight, I pulled out a small machete from my handbag. I had sharpened it that morning in anticipation of that very moment. The kids instantly understood my intention, and they began to plead with me. I ignored them, tied them up, and proceeded to slit their throats. As I did, I thought only of the future Lucas had taken from me and how he had to pay. I dumped their bodies in a nearby river and returned home, composed, as though nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. In the afternoon, chaos erupted. Tina went to the school to pick up the children and was informed that they had been released to the person she had sent to pick them up that morning. She denied asking anyone to pick up the kids. Confusion ensued, and those who had seen and spoken to me began to describe how I looked and what I wore, mentioning that they had released the children to me because they knew me. Tina became disturbed. She insisted she hadn't sent anyone to pick up the children, as there had been no emergency requiring them to return home before the end of the school day. She called Lucas, and both the teachers and headmistress were arrested. Statements were taken, and both teachers said that they could identify the woman who had picked up the children if they saw her again. As I fit their description, Lucas and Tina returned home in the company of a couple of policemen. The children weren't in the house with me, and I denied having picked them up from school. No one believed me, and I was arrested and taken to the police station, where the teachers immediately identified me. I wasn't daunted and continued to insist that they were falsely accusing me and that I had not picked up the children from school. 2 days later, while I was in police custody, the bodies of the children were discovered. Regardless, I maintained that I had nothing to do with their disappearance and subsequent death. I sounded convincing, but I was falling apart on the inside. Peace eluded me. I heard the voices of the children continually, and after 1 month of being in custody, the torment was so great, I confessed everything to my investigating police officer. In court, I pleaded not guilty and was remanded in prison custody without trial. I have now been in prison without a trial for 6 years. In this time, I have had no visitors. Egodi broke down in tears as she finished telling her story. As she cried, I held her and cried with her. Although I did not support the brutal killing of 2 innocent children, I still recognized that Egodi started as a victim, a young underage girl who was misled by an older man. Still, she had ended up a villain when she let her rage get the best of her. I cried as I reflected on how different her life could have been if she had received a little support from her family, if her sister had shown her mercy and given her another chance. Egodi begged me to render her help when I left prison. She asked me to look for her sister and brother and plead with them to come to her aid. I encouraged her to the best of my ability and advised her never to allow herself to be used by the devil in such a way. She continued to cry, expressing her sorrow and repentance. She claimed to have given her life to Christ and promised not to return to sin. The following day, I walked out of prison a free woman. The moment I had long awaited had finally come. I walked out without a backwards glance. I walked out without further thought of Egodi and her story. But those 2 weeks had changed my life, and I would never be the same again. The end. That was part 2 of Egodi's story. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of episode 2 of DOZ Monologues. DOZ Monologues will return next week with another episode. If you enjoyed this episode of DOZ Monologues, please leave your comments and subscribe, like, and share if listening on YouTube. To contact me, please visit my website eturuvieerebor.com or email me at eturuvie@eturuvieerebor.com. I invite all story lovers to explore my novels and novellas available on Amazon and Google Books. For audiobook enthusiasts, they are also on Audible. Thank you for listening. I am your favorite storyteller, Eturuvie Erebor, and I'll be here next Friday with another story.